Hey guys, welcome back to yet another video. I'm the Red Flash, and today I'm going to be talking about what I think is my favourite part of OverDress and the reboot, the ride deck. I think the ride deck fundamentally changes this game at a deck building, creativity, and it's just such a good change for the game that I think it's the most important change we've got. Not the new cards, not the new orders, none of that. The ride deck, and here's why. So, to understand why the ride deck is so important, why the ride deck is so good, we need to go back in time a little bit. We need to talk about G-Assist, or the lack thereof. So, let's go back to before G-Era. We've set 1 all the way through to set 15. The original first 15 sets, obviously, loads of extra boosters as well. You didn't get your ride, right? You've drawn your 5 cards, you've mulligans, you've drawn for turn, you've got no grade 1. What do? Nothing. Unlucky, I guess. You couldn't do anything. You just looked at your hand, and then you just go, cool, pass turn. Your turn, I guess. And then you go from there, draw for turn. If you didn't get it, draw, attack, hope for a grade 1. That was it. We had that for the entirety of Vanguard, which generally wasn't you would get grade stuck, but it wasn't very often because you built your deck around it. You played 15, 16 grade 1s, you played 11 to 12 sort of grade 2s, and then sort of 6 to 8 grade 3s, with a little bit of variance. Obviously, Daikaiser would play more grade 3s, other decks would play less grade 3s because they didn't need it as much. You know, your ratios would change. Your ratios would be dependent on what your deck was trying to do. So decks like Altmiles would play more grade 2s and grade 3s, and anyway, you get the point. Your deck ratios were based on grades, and you need to see a grade 1, a 2, and a 3, and also you need to play 16 triggers and a starter. And then came G. So with the release of the G zone and the bigger importance of being grade 3 and then having more grade 3s to discard to stride, Bushiroad thought it'd be good to implement a mechanic to help maybe conquer this, fight this grade stuck problem. What was their solution? G-Assist. So what is G-Assist? For anyone who doesn't know, you'd be living under a rock if you're watching a Vanguard video and don't know about it, but for anyone who doesn't know, G-Assisting is the act of when you don't have the grade of your Vanguard +1, as long as it's not grade 3, you can't search grade 4s this way. You reveal your hand to your opponent. You look at the top 5 cards from your deck, and if there's a grade of your, so let's say you're missing grade 1. If there's a grade 1 in there, you take it, then you put 2 cards from your hand into the remove zone. It is a zone, but basically you remove them from the game, as well as you take 2 cards from your G zone and remove them. Now, this was a welcome solution at the time. We had obviously come from no solutions. There was no options if you didn't get it. So having the option was nice, but obviously it's quite a neg. Obviously you start with 6 cards after the draw for turn. You don't have your grade 1. You search for top 5 for it, get it, and then after riding you're down to 4 cards. That's just not good. And then you've had to take 2 cards out of your extra deck as well, which, remember, at the start, sorry, not the extra deck, that's even Yu-Gi-Oh talk. The G-Zone, sorry. If you had to take 2 cards out of your G-Zone, which was only 8 cards at the start, that's a fourth of your G-Zone, because the game just hates you. It just hates you didn't get your grade. Unlucky, I guess. So, it was a solution. Was it a good one? Not really, but it was a solution. Then, with the release of V and the new standard, obviously there was no G zone. How are we going to G-Assist? There's no G zone. Well, they just changed it. They just changed it to no longer include the G zone. They just said, hey, G-Assist just takes cards from hand now. This, I get, was a good change. Obviously, it meant that your G-Zone wasn't affected, even though by this time the G-Zone was 16 cards, and you were never really going to all 16 cards, but that's another issue. But you still had to remove 2 cards from hand. Now, there was a little bit of leeway of this, I guess, because obviously V-Starters draw you a card. However, when we take into consideration the fact that every game you drew that card, whether you got grade stock or not, you're still losing that card from the G-Assist cost. And then also the Quick Shield. Obviously, Quick Shield can be removed for G-Assist, so it's one less real card. But then again, that Quick Shield could have been used for the grade 3 searches when the retrained Stride Fighters came out. Could have been used for discard for that. Could have been used discard for something else. Could have been used for guard, for all I care. you're still losing 2 cards. You're still basically going at a -1 at card advantage, which is a whole other video I will go into at a later date. Card advantage is a not complicated one to explain to you properly, but if you don't know what it is, you don't know. So that's where we are now, obviously before D-Standard. We are G-assisting with 2 cards from hand, and it still feels bad. Just like, if we put a percentage on it, where, let's say, you're a skilled player playing against another skilled player, you've basically got a 50-50 chance of winning. If you have to G-assist and your opponent does not, I think your odds go down. Odds of winning that game go down significantly because you're losing 2 cards, and even if they're just triggers, those are 15k shields from your hand, if not 30k if they're sentinel triggers. It's just, even though your deck has to be really good to not care about G-assisting. Something like Luard, who draws a bunch of cards anyway, or Angels, who kill you in 1 turn anyway. Those kind of decks, they don't care if they have to G-assist. They just want to get to their game plan. But other decks, for example, I was on stream on Monday with JJ, and he had to G-assist with Deleters. That basically just killed his game. And he missed it as well. If you miss it, you're even further behind. If you miss your G-assist, you not only are you a turn behind, but when you actually do get that grade, if we assume you have to G-assist again, you're a turn behind and you're 2 cards behind. It's just a big deficit, and it was a solution for a problem that was sort of ingrained into the game's just rule set. It was an ingrained problem that had no solution, so they were just trying to help fix it. And then D-Standard, Kinamori came and just fixed the problem. The Ride deck. Amazing. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I've played this game for 8 or so years now, and the Ride deck is the best thing to be added to it. It turns any card in your hand into any grade. Turn 1, grade 1. Turn 2, grade 2. Turn 3, grade 3. It's amazing. Turns literally any card. Now you're mulligans. You're looking for your deck. You're looking for your game plan. You're not just looking for a grade. You're looking for your game plan. You have a game plan you can achieve now with the Ride deck. Not going into other things. You don't have to worry about grades. And this one fact, you don't care about seeing grades, fixes Vanguard for me. So through testing with my friends and some other players, I've found that just the Ride deck is just so good in so many ways. It can even help fuel a deck's game plan with Stoicheia and the various cards they have that reborn from the grave. You discard a card and reborn it. You've basically got a free advantage from it. Obviously, you have to pay a cost for the card, but that's beyond the point. That card wouldn't be in the grave normally. Sorry, grave. Drop zone. Again, Yu-Gi-Oh! Heathen. My bad. But yeah, it's an amazing feature. But it's more than just the grades. It's the deck building. The Ride deck has affected the game in a way that I'd never thought would. You no longer have to play 13 grade 1s, 13 grade 2s, and then your 8 grade 3s. You can play anything. All you have to do is make sure your deck list contains a grade 1, a grade 2, and a grade 3. And obviously the starter, but that's always in your deck. You don't even have to play any more grade 1s. You could play a completely grade 1-less deck, which now that grade 1s are back to 5k shield along with the grade 2s, you've got no real reason to play grade 1s unless their skills or the fact you need boost calls for it. You know? They're not giving you any more shield than grade 2s. The only advantage is that they're giving boost, which some decks don't even care about. Some decks can build powerful enough front rows that they don't care about boost. And we've seen that in the deck building. For example, my Stoicheia list only plays 4 grade 1s. Sorry, my Magnolia list, I forget, the Stoicheia is a nation. There are multiple decks in that nation now. You've got Magnolia and you've got Zolga. Or Zorga, I never remember which one it is. Zolga's that's its own beast in deck building. Because now that you don't need to worry about rides, Zolga's main deck building puzzle is the ratio between your orders and your normal units. Do you play lots of orders to guarantee them so you can always get Alchemagic every turn? Or do you play a few more normal units so you have more resources, more cards to call, more cards to use? Because obviously the orders don't have guard value. And then the biggest winner, I think, from the deck building standpoint, is Bastion. This guy can literally play half your deck as grade 3s if you really want to, because of the ride deck. Obviously, like, his skill, his entire like game plan is based on grade 3s who have no shield power. So now, I think what will help make a bridge between the bad players and the good players is that deck building. I think we'll see more builds with ratios of like 1-ofs and 2-ofs. And like, I think the magic number for cards you want to see will probably be 3. You'll play 4 of cards like your Persona Ride that you want to. Also, you got 1 in the Ride deck, and you've got 3 left over to draw. You'll be looking for them because Persona Ride is definitely, there are some decks who can operate without Persona Ride, but it's still a very good mechanic. You know, Ride, replace the card with a draw, give front row 10k for the turn. Still a very good effect, and every deck is better with Persona Ride, but some decks don't require it. Bastion's skill, Bastion's entire game plan, which effectively was kind of like Daikaiser. You know, Daikaiser's entire game plan was drive checking grade 3s, as is Bastion's. The difference is Daikaiser has to run for like 13 grade 1s and like 10 grade 2s, 9 grade 2s, because it needs to see them, it needs to ride them. You need to get to Daikaiser. Bastion, however, doesn't. Bastion can turn a grade 3 into a grade 1, can turn a grade 3 into a grade 2 just by discarding it. It's such an interesting mechanic, and it changes Vanguard at the smallest level, at the deck building level, which makes it so much more interesting for players who are veterans of Vanguard. They know about card economy, they know when to guard, when not to guard, they know about sort of damage denying, guarding early attacks you can take later, or vice versa. It's all about that deck building now. Players who have spent years of their life perfecting their guarding economy now have to worry about their deck building, their ratios, it's another level of Vanguard that it didn't have before. Like, yeah, of course, deck building was important, and ratios, and make sure you played enough grade 1s and 2s to ride, but still had enough of cards that gave you enough utility to win the game. But now it's just playing pure game plan cards that will be good to see in any situation, and even cards that substitute out of cards. It's brilliant. For some examples of creative deck building, my Solga list, it only plays 1 Black Tears Husk Dragon because you ride it from the ride deck, and then you then get into drop zone pretty easily with orders or even other units soul blasting, and then you've got it for the entire game. You only ever really need 1 as well, because you're never really calling 2, because usually you'll be calling out the Maiden card that brings it back from drop zone, and then an order card that gives you a front row 10k. And then obviously you then play another Alchemagic for something else, maybe the milling one to like fill your drop zone of some more orders and call some more cards, or maybe the unflip one to get those resources back. It's just good, because now I don't have to worry about playing 4 of Black Husk Dragon to see it. I can just play 1 in the ride deck, and now I've opened up 3 spots in my deck. Another example of the ride deck and how the ride deck itself can actually be quite creative. For an early example, we have Darkseids with their Baron Magnus and Bruce lines. So with the Bruce line, you've got Steve and Richard. Here are the cards, just if you don't know. Obviously, the idea is that you ride Steve, call out the starter, then pass a turn. Turn gets passed back to you. You ride Richard from your ride deck. Richard then puts the starter in to draw you a card, and then you ride into Bruce. And then with Baron Magnus's ride line for the 1 and 2, obviously the idea is to ride Deep Sonica and then Electro Spartan. However, you don't need to. You could always ride Electro Spartan in Bruce. You get your starter, you ride Deep Sonica, Soul Charge 1, and then you call a rear guard from hand. So now then, when you ride Richard then puts that rear guard into Soul to draw a card. Doesn't need to put the starter in. So the ride deck is a little bit interesting. Obviously, the theme is to go Steve then Richard, but you don't have to. you've got an entire nation to play with, and with obviously with more sets and more card pool, we'll see exactly how creative that ride deck can be. Now, most of them are restricted. Most of them do specify cards you have to ride to get their abilities. But obviously, as we get more sets, that won't be as common. It'll just be when this card's placed on Vanguard, when this card's placed on Vanguard. When this, some might require specific grade 1s or 2s, but as we move away from the start deck cards, as you know, TCGs normally do, we'll see more creativity, and it's just another element to think about. Like, do I play Steve or do I play Deep Sonica? I mean, Deep Sonica gets me a draw. Deep Sonica gets me a Soul Charge, but Richard lets me Soul Charge a specific rearguard, which then, you know, you could play Richard in Baron Magnus instead of Electra Spartan to like Soul Charge specific rearguard. For when you get to Baron Magnus 15 Soul skill, you can then call that rearguard out. Now, is that good? That's up for debate, but it's an option, and the best thing to have in card games is options. But that's been my video on the ride deck and why it's my favourite mechanic of OverDress, and why I think it just changes the game. I think it changes the game at a fundamental level that none of us have ever seen before, and I think we're going to see lots of creative deck building, and I can't wait to neck deck someone's top list, because I am shit at deck building. But thank you all for watching. I'd like to remind you to like and subscribe as any good YouTuber will, and I hope to see you next time. Don't forget to check me out on Twitch. I stream Monday, Wednesday and Friday, starting at 2 PM GMT most of the time. Check my Discord for any announcements about that, and I'll see you next time.